Lynn from the Chicken Coop Homestead, and today we are planting strawberries. I've done strawberries a couple of different ways, but this year what I thought, I have a lot of hanging baskets from plants that were spent, but I saved the hanging baskets, and I've been kind of studying up on that. And I think that's what I'm going to do this year, is put them in hanging baskets. Number one, in every garden, you only have a finite amount of space. So this will allow me to hang them up on, actually have a rack that's meant for like a commercial nursery that holds hanging baskets. Or I have like shepherd's hooks that I can hang them on inside my garden. So I went to my local nursery and I bought a flat of strawberries, and I thought they were very reasonably priced. They were like $21.69, something like that. And I got perennial strawberries. They're ever-bearing, and I also did some research, and it said that you could plant up to 2 to 3 strawberry plants in a container. I think 3 would be a little bit too many, so I'm going to plant 2 per hanging basket. Now, the other thing, strawberries like a lot of fertile soil, but they also like well-draining soil. And they also like to stay moist, so they're kind of a little bit of a tricky little plant to grow. So what I'm going to do is, my husband went out and got me some horse manure, very dry, very aged horse manure. But now listen, people need to be careful with horse manure. Horse manure is a great manure. It's not a hot manure really, though it's better to have it aged for a little bit. But the problem with horse manure is a horse only has 1 stomach, compared to like a cow that has like 8 stomachs. And by the time a cow processes a seed, it is pretty much digested. A horse, on the other hand, does not digest out the seeds. So if you use horse manure, especially horse that's grazing out in the pasture, you will get a lot of weeds. So be very careful with your horse manure. If you have a horse that rarely is out on pasture, that stays stalled a lot, a very fancy horse that gets stalled most of the time, and eats hay or alfalfa or something like that, you will be probably okay. But that's usually not the case. Most people are getting horses or out of their stalls, but they've still been out on paddocks and things. So like I say, horse manure is a great manure, but it's not a good manure for top dressing. A horse manure needs to be buried into a pot so that the seed heads are very buried and they don't get a lot of exposure to sunlight, so they do not germinate. So that is one of the things you need to be careful about using horse manure. Okay, so I filled this up probably about a third of the way full with horse manure, and I'm going to put some potting mix in here, so let me get that. Alright, so I've got some potting soil in here. This potting soil is pretty dry, so I'm going to water my strawberries, but I'm going to water them all at one time once I get them all planted, okay? Alright. So this is a strawberry plant, and I go in there, if there's any little dead leaves or anything, I kind of pull that off. I probably should pull these little flowers off, but I'm not going to. Normally you want to do that, but I'm going to take a chance. I'm into taking chances these days. I'm going to take a chance and not do that. Alright, can you see me? I'm going to put one on one side and then just one on the other. And of course I saved my little containers because I use those to plant things out, but I always wash my containers. So y'all, if you save your containers from a nursery, be sure and wash them. And I wash mine in Castile soap. yellow leaves on here. I'm going to go ahead and pull those off. Alright, so let me put this hanging basket back together. And then this one is potted up. And I'll show y'all all of them when I'm done, okay? So it's just that simple. And hopefully I can keep them watered well enough that they will produce some strawberries for my husband loves strawberries, and of course my grandkids would love to pick some strawberries. So let me get these rest of these planted up, and then I'll show you them all when I'm done. Alright, so I have 9 hanging baskets of strawberries, and this soil that I used, the potting soil plus the horse manure, was very, very dry. So I'm going to give these about 3 or 4 good waterings before I hang them up outside. And I'm not going to do it here in the heat of the day. I'm going to wait till this evening, and then I'll hang them out in the sun and let them kind of build up to that hot part of the day. We're in East Texas, and it's a beautiful day. It's kind of a little bit cool outside, but that sun is still pretty hot. When you get out there and working, it's pretty hot. The other thing I did was I ended up mostly cutting off any kind of strawberries that were producing. This one I didn't, but I'll go back and do that. But I left all the blooms, but I did cut off on these other ones all the strawberries that were producing, just because I want this strawberry plant to send all its energy to getting rooted into these pots, and not all their energy into establishing those strawberries, finishing out those strawberries. I did leave the blooms on them. You know, you could cut the blooms off as well. I'm one of those gardeners, it's very hard for me to prune. It's very hard for me to like overplant and then, you know, pull out some of the plants that I've overplanted. I'm not very good at that. So I always try to just plant sparingly so that I don't have to go back and thin. So I'm just going to give these a really good drink, but probably about 2 or 3 times before this evening. Luckily, the plants themselves were good and watered that the strawberry was in, so that was good. The other thing I want to talk to y'all about was the other reason why I used horse manure. Okay, so my husband had gone and got me a 5-gallon bucket of horse manure. I used almost that entire bucket of horse manure, filling these up 1/3 of the way. So I saved 5 gallons of potting mix. Instead of putting potting mix in these pots and filling them up with potting mix all the way, I also saved 5 gallons worth of potting mix. And you don't think that that's a lot, but that is a lot that you're saving when you do this. So try to think of ways that you can use your own compost or a manure, a rabbit manure, or chicken manure that's been aged in your pots, so that you're not, you know, having to spend all your money that you're buying this potting mix with to fill all these pots up. Just one more way to save with gardening. There's that 5-gallon bucket, and it's almost to the end of it. And it was full like that one. Alright, one other thing that I had not mentioned was these are perennial strawberries, but they're ever-bearing strawberries. So I just wanted to give you the name of them. It also says strawberries like full sun, and they do, but in Texas, full sun in Texas is a whole different full sun for a lot of states. So just because a plant says full sun in Texas does not mean that it can take that 2 and 3 and 4 and 5 o'clock heat of our summers. So, you know, I'm going to put these in an area where they get all the morning sun and get up through till about noon or 1 o'clock maybe, and then they'll start getting more shade on them. So there is a difference in our zone in Texas what full sun means and what full sun means to growers. So that, just keep that in mind if you're in a southern state that gets rather warm. So thanks for visiting with me here at the Chicken Coop Homestead, and y'all get to gardening.